The first time I saw Lieutenant Kade Merrick fly, I thought he was either suicidal or brilliant. Turns out he was both. My name is Vorn, and I'm what you humans would call an air traffic controller, except my job involves coordinating flights across 17 different species, each with their own idea of what constitutes safe flying. The Cathari think barrel rolls are a legitimate landing procedure. The Drinics refuse to fly below cloud level because they believe the ground spirits will curse them. And then there are humans. Oh, the humans. They fly like they are trying to personally insult physics. I remember that day with perfect clarity, partly because my species has eidetic memory, but mostly because it was the day everything changed. The day the storm came. The day Kade Merrick vanished. The day the sky itself seemed to crack open. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It started on a Tuesday, if you use the human calendar, which I'd been forced to learn after they joined the Galactic Coalition 3 cycles ago. I was stationed on Outpost 7, a diplomatic hub orbiting the planet Nexara, monitoring the usual traffic when Kade's voice crackled through my headset. "Tower, this is Raptor 3 requesting clearance for atmospheric entry," he said, his tone carrying that infuriating mix of confidence and amusement that all human pilots seemed to possess. I checked my screens. "Raptor 3, you are cleared for standard descent vector Alpha 7. Weather advisory in effect. Class 4 ion storm developing in the southern hemisphere." "Copy that, Tower. Ion storm. Sounds fun." "Fun?" He said fun. "Lieutenant Merrick, that was not an invitation," I said, all 4 of my eye stalks focusing on his ship's trajectory. "The storm is expanding rapidly. I'm recommending you delay entry by 6 hours. There was a pause. Then, "Negative, Tower. I have got a diplomatic courier package that's already 3 hours behind schedule. Command wants it delivered yesterday." Of course they did. Humans had this bizarre obsession with deadlines, as if the universe cared about their arbitrary time measurements. "Your funeral," I muttered, probably loud enough for him to hear. "What was that, Tower?" I said, "Maintain standard approach and keep me updated on your status." "Will do. Raptor 3 out." I watched his ship, a sleek human interceptor they called a Tempest-class fighter, angle toward Nexara's atmosphere. The humans had only been in space for about 200 of their years, which was practically yesterday in galactic terms, but their ships were already competing with designs that had taken other species millennia to perfect. It was annoying. Impressive, but annoying. My colleague, a floating Quellan named Brix, drifted over to my station. Brix communicated through color shifts in their gelatinous body, and right now they were pulsing a deep purple that I'd learned meant concern. "That's the 3rd human pilot this week who's ignored storm warnings," Brix said, their translation device rendering their color patterns into speech. "4th, I corrected. Lieutenant Torres went through a meteor shower yesterday because, and I quote, it would save 15 minutes. Did he survive?" "Unfortunately, yes, which only encourages them." Brix rippled with what might have been laughter. "You sound fond of them." "I sound exhausted by them. There's a difference." But Brix wasn't entirely wrong. In the 3 cycles since humanity had arrived, I'd developed a grudging respect for their pilots. They were reckless, sure, but they were also creative in ways that made my tactical training look like a child's coloring book. They broke rules I didn't even know could be broken. Kade Merrick was one of the worst offenders. I'd been tracking him for 6 months now. He'd once threaded his fighter through a debris field that our computers said had 0 survivable flight paths. He'd outmaneuvered a Cathari ace in a mock combat exercise using a maneuver that violated at least 3 laws of physics. When questioned, he'd shrugged and said, "Seemed like a good idea at the time." Humans. 20 minutes passed. Kade's ship had entered the upper atmosphere, and I was monitoring his descent when the first warning alarm blared across my console. "Vorn, I'm reading massive energy spikes in that storm system," my sensor technician, a methodical Ordec named Finn, called out. "It's not behaving like a normal ion storm." I pulled up the meteorological data. Finn was right. The storm was growing exponentially, feeding on itself in a way that defied every atmospheric model in our database. Raptor 3, this is Tower. Abort your descent immediately. The storm is displaying anomalous behavior. Static crackled back at me. Raptor 3, do you copy? More static. Then Kade's voice cut through, strained but still carrying that insufferable calm. Tower, I'm getting some turbulence down here. Nothing I can't handle. Nothing he couldn't handle. The storm was reading energy outputs equivalent to a small sun, and he thought it was nothing he couldn't handle. Lieutenant, this is not a suggestion. Pull up now. That storm will tear your ship apart. I'm already committed to the descent, Tower. It's too much velocity to pull back up without burning through my fuel reserves. I wanted to reach through the comm system and shake him. Then eject and let us retrieve you, and lose the diplomatic package. Command would have my head. I'm threading through it. You are threading through a Class 9 storm. The classification had just updated on my screen. Class 9. We'd never recorded a Class 9 storm in this system. Kade, please just eject. The use of his first name seemed to surprise him. There was a longer pause this time. Vorn, buddy, I appreciate the concern. Really, but I have flown through worse. No, you haven't. Nobody has. Not and lived. His fighter was visible now on the long-range cameras, a tiny speck against the roiling chaos of purple and electric blue energy. Lightning arched between cloud formations the size of continents. The storm was beautiful and terrifying. Well then, Kade said, and I could hear the grin in his voice despite the howling wind in the background. I guess this will be a first. Tower, I'm going silent to focus on flying. See you on the other side. Raptor 3, wait. The comm went dead. For the next 8 minutes, I watched the most skilled display of piloting I'd ever witnessed. Kade's fighter twisted and rolled through gaps in the storm that appeared and vanished in seconds. He climbed, dove, spun, and somehow stayed ahead of energy discharges that would have vaporized his ship instantly. Every single movement was perfect. Necessary. Improvised. Bricks floated beside me, their entire body frozen in a pale, shocked white. How is he doing that? They whispered. I have no idea, I admitted. Then, at minute 9, everything went wrong. The storm pulsed. I don't know how else to describe it. The entire massive system contracted for a split second, then exploded outward with a force that sent energy readings off every scale we had. Kade's fighter was right in the center. Raptor 3. I shouted into the comm. Kade. Nothing. Nothing. His transponder signal vanished. His fighter disappeared from every sensor we had. One moment he was there, dancing through impossible odds. The next he was just gone. I have lost him, Finn said, their usually stoic voice shaking. No signal. No debris. Nothing. My 3 hearts felt like they stopped simultaneously. Scan again. Widen the search parameters. I'm scanning. There's nothing, Vorn. The storm, it's like it swallowed him whole. I stared at the screen where Kade's icon had been seconds before. Humans weren't supposed to die that easily. They were supposed to survive through luck and skill and sheer stubborn refusal to accept reality. They were supposed to laugh at danger and come back with ridiculous stories. They weren't supposed to just vanish. Launch search and rescue, I ordered, my voice hollow. The storm is still active, Finn protested. It's too dangerous. I don't care. Launch search and rescue now. Bricks pulsed a gentle orange. Vorn, he's gone. No one could survive that. I rounded on them, all 4 eye stalks converging in anger. You don't know that. You don't know humans like I do. Launch. The rescue. Over the next 3 hours, we sent 4 different teams into the dissipating storm. They found nothing. No wreckage. No black box. No body. It was like Kade Merrick had simply ceased to exist. I filed the incident report with numb efficiency. Pilot lost. Cause natural disaster. Survival probability 0.001%. The diplomatic package he'd been carrying was flagged as lost. Command sent their regrets. His squadron held a memorial service. I didn't attend. 3 days passed. I threw myself into my work, processing the endless stream of traffic through Outpost 7. The Cathari still did barrel rolls, the Drenics still avoided ground spirits, and the humans still flew like maniacs, though I noticed they were being slightly more careful around storms now. Slightly. Ben. On the 4th day, Finn called me over to his station with an urgency I'd rarely heard from him. Vorn, you need to see this. I moved to his console. What am I looking at? Sensor echo from Nexara's upper atmosphere. It appeared 20 minutes ago. The screen showed a faint energy signature moving in a controlled flight pattern. Could be space debris, I said, though my voice lacked conviction. Space debris doesn't perform evasive maneuvers. Finn brought up the tracking data. Whatever this is, it's being piloted. My primary heart started beating faster. What's the transponder reading? That's the thing. There is no transponder. But the flight signature matches its Raptor class. Get me a visual, I demanded. Finn worked his controls. The long-range camera focused, adjusted, and suddenly I was looking at a familiar shape. A Tempest-class fighter, scarred and damaged, but intact. Flying. That's impossible, Brick said, appearing beside me. That's his ship. I was already opening a comm channel. Unidentified Raptor-class vessel. This is Outpost 7 Tower. Identify yourself immediately. Static answered me. Then, cutting through the interference, a voice I'd thought I'd never hear again. Tower, this is Lieutenant Kade Merrick requesting emergency landing clearance. And boy, do I have a story for you. The relief that flooded through me was so intense I nearly collapsed against my console. Kade? How? We searched for you. You were gone. The storm. Yeah, about that storm. His voice was strained, tired, but alive. So wonderfully alive. Tower, I need to land soon. My ship is barely holding together, and I'm running on fumes. But first, you need to clear all traffic from the southern approach vector. Why? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Not yet. But in about 40 minutes, something's coming through that storm. Something big. Something that followed me out. This ran through my veins. What do you mean, something followed you? I mean that storm wasn't natural, Vorn. It was a door, and I just knocked. Before I could respond, alarms began blaring across every station. Finn's screen lit up with warnings. Vorn, the storm. It's activating again. The energy readings are spiking even higher than before. I pulled up the feed. The storm system, which had been slowly dissipating over the past 4 days, was suddenly expanding again. But this time, there was something else. Something inside it. A shape. No, multiple shapes. Large ones. Yes. What are those? Bricks asked, their bodies cycling rapidly through confused colors. I don't know, I said, though a cold dread was forming in my gut. Kade, what am I looking at? Contact command, he said, his voice grim. Tell them to scramble every fighter they have. Tell them to get the fleet here. Because Tower, when I flew into that storm, I didn't just survive it. I found out what was on the other side. And what was that? There was a pause. When he spoke again, I could hear the mix of awe and terror in his voice. We are not alone out here. And whatever's been waiting in that storm, they are not happy that I found them. The shapes in the storm were getting clearer now. Ships. Massive ships. Designs I'd never seen before in any database. And they were heading straight for Nexara. How many? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Kade's fighter was approaching the station now, limping through space on damaged thrusters. I could see scorch marks along the hull, sections of armor peeled away, one wing nearly sheared off. How he'd flown this wreck through space was a miracle in itself. "I counted 30 before I ran," he said. "But Tower, I think there's more. A lot more. 30 unknown hostile vessels." My training kicked in, pushing aside the fear. "All stations, we are now at alert condition red. Get command on the line immediately. Ground all civilian traffic. Activate defense grid." Orders flew. Personnel scrambled. And all the while, those shapes kept coming, emerging from the storm like ancient predators awakening from sleep. Kade's fighter wobbled into the landing bay, crash landing more than landing, sparks flying as it skidded to a halt. I watched on the bay cameras as the canopy opened and he climbed out, swaying on his feet. He looked terrible. His flight suit was torn. His face was covered in cuts and bruises. But he was grinning that infuriating human grin. Medical teams rushed to him, but he waved them off, pointing at something in his fighter's cargo hold, a diplomatic package. Somehow, impossibly, he still had it. "Package delivered," he said to no one in particular, then collapsed. I left Bricks in charge of the tower and ran to the medical bay. By the time I got there, they had Kade on a bed, hooked up to various monitors. A human doctor, whose name I couldn't remember, was checking his vitals. "Is he going to survive?" I asked. The doctor looked up. "Physically, probably. He's banged up, but nothing critical. Mentally? That's going to depend on what he saw out there." Kade's eyes opened. They focused on me, and some of that grin returned. "Hey, Tower? Miss me?" I moved closer, trying to project calm even though my eye stalks were trembling. "What happened out there, Lieutenant?" He tried to sit up, winced, and settled back. "After the storm hit, I lost all power. The ship went into a spin. I thought I was dead. But then I saw light. Not lightning. Different. Like a tunnel opening up in the middle of the chaos. My instruments were fried, so I flew manual, followed the light. And I came out on the other side. Vorn, there's a whole other region of space connected to that storm. It's like a wormhole, but stable. Permanent, and it's full of ships. Old ships, ancient ships. They have been there for who knows how long. What did they want?" His expression darkened. "At first, nothing. They just watched me. I tried to hail them, but my comms were toast. So I started looking for a way back. That's when I found the package had survived, still intact in the shielded cargo hold. I figured if I was going to die, might as well die completing the mission, right? That was so typically human I couldn't even be surprised. Then one of their ships approached me. A big thing. Had to be 3 times the size of our largest cruiser. It scanned my fighter, and I swear, Vorn, I felt it looking at me. Not the ship. Whatever was inside it. Looking into me. Did they communicate? Not in words. But I got the message. They wanted me to stay. To join them. Or maybe they just didn't want me leaving and telling anyone about them. I didn't stick around to find out. I punched my engines, aimed for where I thought the tunnel was, and flew like hell. They followed you. Oh, they more than followed me. They chased me. Shot at me. My ship, it's only together because I kept moving too fast for them to get a clean hit. I made it through the tunnel, but not before I heard something that made my blood freeze. What? Kade met my eyes, and I saw genuine fear there for the first time since I'd known him. They were talking to each other. And Vorn, I understood them. It's not the language, but the tone. The intent. They were excited. Like hunters who'd just found new prey. And when I came through that storm, I think I rang the dinner bell. A comm alert interrupted us. Finn's voice came through, panicked. Vorn, get back to the tower. Now. Those ships, they are not slowing down. They are heading straight for the planet. And command says the fleet won't arrive for another 2 hours. 2 hours. We had maybe 30 minutes before those ships reached firing range of Nexara. I looked at Kade. Can you fly? Are you serious? I just crashed. I'm serious. Because if those ships are as dangerous as you say, we need every pilot in the air. That includes you." He stared at me for a long moment, then started pulling monitoring wires off himself. "Doc, I'm going to need a lot of stimulants and a new fighter. In that order." The doctor started to protest, but I cut them off. "Do it. We don't have time." 20 minutes later, I was back in the tower, coordinating what was about to be either the bravest or stupidest defense in galactic history. We had 16 fighters. 16 against 30-plus unknown hostiles. The odds were not in our favor. Kade's voice came through the comm, stronger now thanks to whatever cocktail of drugs the doctor had given him. "Raptor 3 to tower. I'm in the air. And tower. Just so you know, this is officially the worst Tuesday ever." Despite everything, I almost laughed. Acknowledged, "Raptor 3. Good luck. Luck's got nothing to do with it. Skill, timing, and a healthy dose of insanity. That's the human way." The unknown ships were close now. Close enough that I could make out details. They were beautiful in a terrifying way. Sleek, organic-looking, covered in symbols I didn't recognize. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of predatory fish, and they were accelerating. "All fighters, this is Tower. Engage at will. Try not to die." It wasn't my most inspiring speech, but it was honest. The first shots lit up the sky like a twisted fireworks display. Our fighters danced and weaved, firing, retreating, firing again. The unknown ships returned fire with weapons that seemed to bend light itself. 2 of our fighters went down in the first 30 seconds. "This isn't working," someone shouted over the comm. "Their shields are too strong." Kade's fighter broke formation, accelerating toward the enemy line. "Raptor 3, what are you doing?" I demanded. "Something stupid. Cover me." He flew straight at the lead enemy ship, weapons blazing. At the last second, when collision seemed inevitable, he rolled, twisted, and came up underneath the vessel. His shots peppered its underside, and suddenly explosions rippled across its hull. "Their shields are weaker underneath," Kade called out. Attack from below. Our pilots adjusted, following his lead. The battle turned from a slaughter into a fight. Barely. But there were too many of them. For every ship we damaged, 2 more came through the storm. They were coordinating, learning our tactics, adapting. We were going to lose. And then, just when I thought all hope was gone, something changed. The storm pulsed again, but differently this time. Brighter, more violent. And something new came through, something that made every ship in the battle stop and stare. The thing that emerged from the storm was bigger than any ship I'd ever seen, bigger than a station, bigger than some moons I'd visited. It was human-made, that much was clear from the design, but it looked ancient, scarred, battle-worn, like it had been fighting for 1,000 years and refused to die. "Tower, are you seeing this?" Kade's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm seeing it," I replied, though I didn't believe it. "What is that?" "I have no idea. That thing wasn't there when I came through before." The massive vessel hung in space for a moment, and I swear it felt like it was assessing the situation. Then, without warning, it opened fire. Not at us. At them. Yeah. The weapons it unleashed made our fighters look like toys. Beams of concentrated energy carved through the enemy ships like they were made of paper. Missiles streaked across the void, each one finding its target with impossible precision. In the span of 15 seconds, it destroyed 8 enemy vessels. The remaining hostile ships immediately changed tactics, turning to face this new threat. But they were too slow. The massive human ship was already moving, despite its size, with a grace that defied physics. It spun, rolled, and positioned itself between our fighters and the enemy fleet. A new voice crackled through every comm channel. Deep, female, carrying an authority that made my spine straighten involuntarily. All coalition fighters, fall back to defensive positions. We will handle this. Who is this? I demanded. Identify yourself. There was a pause. Then, Tower, this is Captain Helena Cross of the USSV Retribution. And I'm here to clean up one hell of a mess. The SV, United Human Space Vessel. But I'd never heard of any ship called Retribution in the human fleet. The command kept meticulous records, and nothing this large could have been built without the entire galaxy knowing about it. Captain Cross, you are not in our database, I said, watching as her ship obliterated 3 more enemy vessels. Where did you come from? Same place those hostiles came from, Tower, or the other side of that storm. And trust me when I say this, you really don't want the full explanation right now. Just get your people to safety and let us work. Kade's fighter swung around, heading back toward the station. Tower, I think we should listen to the giant death machine. Just a suggestion. For once, I agreed with him completely. All fighters withdraw to station perimeter, maintain defensive formation, but do not engage unless directly threatened. Our remaining pilots complied, pulling back as the Retribution moved forward. It was a warship, that much was obvious, but the design was unlike anything in the current human fleet. More aggressive, more brutal. Built for one purpose only, to destroy. And it was magnificent at its job. The enemy ships tried to overwhelm it with numbers, swarming from multiple angles. The Retribution didn't even slow down. Point defense turrets tracked and eliminated incoming fire. Broader weapons carved through hulls. And all the while it kept advancing. Vorn, I'm reading multiple energy signatures inside that ship, Finn reported. There are people aboard. A lot of people. Maybe 3,000. 3,000 crew for a single vessel. The logistics alone were staggering. But what happened next was even more staggering. The storm pulsed again, and more ships came through. Human ships. Smaller than the Retribution, but still formidable. They formed up in attack wings, their movements coordinated with military precision. Within minutes, what had been a desperate last stand turned into a full-scale battle. And we were winning. Captain Cross, I said into the comm, where did all these ships come from? Her response was clipped, focused. She was clearly managing the battle while talking to me. That storm, Tower, it's been there for a long time. A lot longer than your coalition has existed. We have been on the other side, fighting a war you didn't even know was happening. These hostiles, they are called the Vraxen, and they have been trying to break through to this side for decades. Why didn't you contact us? Why didn't you tell the coalition about this threat? Because we couldn't. The storm, it's not just a wormhole, it's a barrier. A prison, in a way. Keeps them in. Keeps us in. Nothing gets through without tremendous power and effort. Your pilot here. He managed it because his ship was small enough to slip through a temporary fluctuation. But doing that, he weakened the barrier. Made it easier for the Vraxen to push through. I looked at Kade's fighter on my screens. He'd gone quiet. So this is his fault? I asked. No. Captain Cross's voice was firm. This was inevitable. The barrier's been failing for years. He just accelerated the timeline. If anything, he did us a favor. Gave us warning. Let us prepare. Another explosion lit up the void as a Vraxen cruiser broke apart under concentrated fire. And how long have you been fighting them? I asked. Almost 43 years. Since the first human exploration ship stumbled through the storm and got trapped on the other side. We have been holding the line ever since, making sure they didn't break through. Building ships. Training crews. Waiting. 43 years. An entire human generation, fighting a war in secret, protecting a galaxy that didn't even know they existed. It was insane. It was heroic. It was so incredibly human that I felt my respect for the species double in an instant. Captain, the Coalition fleet is 2 hours out, I informed her. Can you hold until then? Tower we have held for 43 years. 2 more hours is nothing, but I need you to do something for me. Name it. And that pilot, Merrick. Get him on a secure channel. I need to talk to him. Privately. I routed the connection, patching Kade through to the Retribution while keeping myself on the line, technically against protocol, but I had a feeling this conversation was important. Lieutenant Merrick, Captain Cross said, her tone shifting to something almost gentle. You did good out there, kid. Flying through that storm, surviving the Vraxen, making it back. That took guts. Thank you, Mayam. Kade sounded tired. Though I'm pretty sure I violated about 100 safety regulations. She laughed. Actually laughed. Son, you violated about 1,000. But here's the thing. That package you were carrying, the diplomatic courier package. Do you know what was in it? No, ma'am. Sealed container. Above my clearance level. It was a message. From Human Command to the Coalition Council. Warning them about anomalous readings in this sector. Warning them that something might be coming. Your command knew something was wrong. They just didn't know what. You getting that message through, you just saved a lot of lives. There was silence. Then Kade said, I lost 2 pilots today. They died covering my approach. I know, and their sacrifice matters. But if you hadn't delivered that warning, if the Coalition hadn't started mobilizing their fleet, we'd be looking at a lot more than 2 casualties. War is about impossible choices, Lieutenant. You made the right one. I watched the battle continue on my screens. The Vraxen were retreating now, pulling back toward the storm. But they weren't running. They were regrouping. Captain, I interrupted. The hostiles are forming a new battle line at the storm's edge. They are not leaving. They won't, she replied. The storm's their home now, same as it's been ours. This is just the opening skirmish tower. The real war is about to begin. Bricks pulsed a worried yellow beside me. What do you mean, the real war? I mean that barrier has finally failed. The door's open. And both sides have been preparing for this moment for decades. The Vraxen want through, want access to Coalition space, want to expand, and we are going to stop them. At what cost? I asked. Captain Cross was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of someone who'd seen too much combat. Whatever it takes, Tower. Whatever it takes. The Coalition fleet arrived an hour and 47 minutes later. 13 minutes early. I'd never been so happy to see Admiral Tusk's flagship in my life. The Cathari commander was abrasive, arrogant, and absolutely brilliant at warfare. Her reaction to seeing the Retribution was priceless. I listened to the command channel as her voice came through, sharp with suspicion. Unidentified human vessel, you are in violation of Coalition space. Identify yourself immediately and explain your presence, or be fired upon. Captain Cross responded with calm authority. Admiral Tusk, I'm transmitting our credentials now. We are human military, attached to a classified operation. We are on your side. There is no classified operation I'm not aware of, Captain. With respect, Admiral, yes there is. Check the files I just sent. Authorization code Omega-7 Black. Signed by the Coalition Security Council 43 years ago. There was a long pause. I could imagine Admiral Tusk reviewing the data, her 3 eyes narrowing in concentration. This is impossible, she finally said. This authorization, it predates my commission. It predates the modern fleet structure. I know. It was created when humanity first joined the Coalition. A contingency plan. In case we found something out here that needed to be contained. We found it. We have been containing it. And now the situation has changed. Admiral Tusk's voice turned icy. You have been fighting a war without informing the Coalition? We have been preventing a war from reaching the Coalition. There's a difference. Semantics. Survival. I'd never heard anyone talk back to Admiral Tusk like that. It was terrifying and impressive in equal measure. The Admiral's tone shifted slightly. Captain Cross, what exactly are we dealing with? The Vraxen. Ancient species. highly aggressive, technologically advanced. They were contained in a pocket dimension connected to this system through that storm. We have kept them there. But the barriers failed. They are coming through. And they won't stop until they have conquered or been destroyed. How many? On the other side? Our best estimates put their fleet at around 5,000 ships. The comm went silent. Even Admiral Tusk needed a moment to process that. 5,000, she repeated. And you have been fighting them with what? A few dozen ships? We have been fighting them with strategy, determination, and a willingness to take casualties that would make most species surrender. We have been fighting them because someone had to. And we have been winning. Barely, but winning. Kade's voice cut in. He'd apparently been given access to the command channel. Admiral, I can confirm the captain's story. I saw their ships on the other side. Hundreds of them. The humans over there, they have turned that entire region into a fortress. They are not hiding. They are not running. They are holding the line. Admiral Tusk made a sound that might have been respect. Very well, Captain Cross. On my authority, I'm granting you and your fleet temporary coalition status. We will coordinate our defensive efforts. But when this immediate crisis is over, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about unauthorized military operations. Looking forward to it, Admiral, Captain Cross replied, and I could hear the smile in her voice. The combined fleet formed up, human and coalition ships working together. It was awkward at first. Our communication protocols were different. Our tactical doctrines didn't match. But slowly, we found a rhythm. The Vraxen tested us 3 more times over the next 6 hours. Each time, they probed our defenses, looking for weaknesses. Each time, we drove them back. But I could see what Captain Cross meant. This wasn't the main attack. This was reconnaissance. Kade had been allowed to land finally, forced into medical observation despite his protests. I visited him in the recovery ward between shifts. He was sitting up in bed, covered in bandages, glaring at a nurse who was trying to convince him to sleep. "Hey, Tower," he said when he saw me. "Come to yell at me for breaking more regulations? I came to check if you were still alive, which you are, against all probability." The nurse huffed and left, muttering something about stubborn humans. Kade grinned. "She's nice. Threatened to sedate me 4 times already." I settled into a chair beside his bed, my eye stalks relaxing for the first time in hours. "You know, when you vanished into that storm, I thought I'd never see you again. Honestly. So did I. What was it like? On the other side?" He looked at the ceiling, considering. "It was beautiful and terrible. Space, but wrong somehow. The stars were different colors. The physics didn't quite work the same way. And the ships, Vorn, there were so many ships. Human ships, barely holding together, crewed by people who'd never seen regular coalition space. People who were born in that pocket dimension. Fighting. Always fighting. Did you meet any of them?" "No, I was too busy running for my life. But I saw them through the viewports of their ships as I passed. And I saw something in their eyes. Determination. Like they'd accepted that they might never leave, but they were going to make sure nothing else left either. That's a terrible way to live. Maybe. But it's also kind of amazing, isn't it? They could have given up. Could have tried to negotiate with the Vraxen. Could have fled deeper into that pocket dimension. But they stayed. They fought. Because that's what humans do, apparently. We find impossible situations and we punch them in the face until they become possible. I couldn't help but make a sound that was the Vorn equivalent of laughter. That's a terrible survival strategy. Yeah, but it works surprisingly often. An alarm echoed through the medical bay. Red lights flashed. My communicator buzzed with an emergency alert. All personnel to battle stations. Massive energy spike detected at the storm. This is not a drill. Kade was already swinging his legs out of bed, ignoring the monitors that started beeping in protest. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "What does it look like? I'm getting back in a fighter. You are injured. You are exhausted. You are in no condition to fly. He met my gaze with those determined human eyes. Vorn, there are 3,000 people on that ship out there who have been fighting alone for 43 years. They came through to help us. The least I can do is get back out there and help them. Injured, exhausted, or whatever. I'm a pilot. This is what we do. I wanted to argue. Wanted to order him back to bed. But I knew it wouldn't work. Humans, especially human pilots, didn't accept limitations like normal species. Fine. But I'm assigning you to defensive patrol only. No heroics. Define heroics. Kade. Okay, defensive patrol, I promise. He was lying. We both knew it. But sometimes that's what leadership meant. Accepting that your people were going to do dangerous, stupid, brave things and supporting them anyway. I returned to the tower to find chaos. The storm was expanding again, but faster this time, more violent, and the energy readings were off every chart we had. Captain Cross, Admiral Tusk's voice came through the command channel. What are we looking at? That's a full invasion force, Admiral. The Vraxen just committed everything they have. This is it. The real fight. How long do we have? Minutes, maybe less. All ships prepare for heavy combat. This is going to get ugly. She wasn't exaggerating. The storm erupted like a volcano and ships poured through. Dozens, hundreds, more than I could count. They filled the space around Nexara like a swarm of locusts, blotting out the stars. Our combined fleet looked pathetically small in comparison. All fighters launch, Admiral Tusk ordered. All ships, weapons free. Show them what the coalition is made of. But the battle that followed was beyond description. Explosions lit up space like a second sun. Energy beams crisscrossed the void. Ships danced and died in equal measure. The Retribution carved through enemy lines like an ancient god of war, its weapons never silent. Coalition cruisers formed defensive walls, their shields flaring under constant bombardment. And in the middle of it all, tiny fighters weaved and twisted, firing, dodging, surviving by seconds and skill. Kade's voice came through the calm despite the chaos. Raptor 3 to all fighters. Target the command ship, the big one at grid 7-4. If we take it out, their coordination falls apart. Negative, Raptor 3, another pilot responded. That thing's shields are too strong. We will never get through. Then we don't go through. We go under. Follow my lead. I watched on my screens as Kade's fighter dove, followed by 6 others. They approached the massive Vraxen command vessel from below, just as Kade had done during the first engagement. Their weapons concentrated on a single point. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shields flickered. Now, Kade shouted, "Everything you have got." The concentrated fire punched through the weakened shields, tearing into the hull. Secondary explosions rippled across the command ship's surface. It listed, tried to correct, and then broke apart in a massive fireball that temporarily silenced every weapon in the battle. "Command ship destroyed," Finn reported, his voice awed. "Their formation is breaking up. They are losing cohesion." Admiral Tusk's voice cut through the celebration. "Don't get comfortable. They are adapting. Press the advantage now before they reorganize." The coalition fleet surged forward, capitalizing on the confusion. But the Vraxen were already adapting, just as the Admiral predicted. New command ships took over. The formation tightened. The battle continued. Hours blurred together. I coordinated fighter wings, managed damaged ships, rerouted power, and tried not to think about the casualty reports piling up on my secondary screen. We were holding. Barely, but holding. Then Captain Cross's voice came through, urgent. "Admiral, I'm reading a massive power signature deep in the storm. Something's charging up. Something big. Weapon? Unknown. But if I had to guess, I'd say they are preparing a final push. Everything they have left. Can we stop it?" "Not from out here. Someone would need to go into the storm, find the source, destroy it before it activates. There was a pause. Then Admiral Tusk said, "That's a suicide mission." "I know." Den. Another pause. Then Kade's voice, quiet but certain. "I will do it." "Do it." "Absolutely not," I said immediately. "Kade, you barely survived that storm the first time. You can't go back in." "Vorn's right," Captain Cross added. "Lieutenant, you are a good pilot, but this needs someone with experience in that environment. I'm sending a strike team from the Retribution. With respect, Captain, your team won't make it in time. I'm already in position. I know the way. I have been through before. Let me do this." Admiral Tusk's voice was thoughtful. "The human is correct. Time is critical. Lieutenant Merrick, you are authorized for the mission. But you are not going alone. Captain Cross, can you provide support? We will cover his approach and provide targeting data. But once he's in that storm, he's on his own. The interference is too strong for remote guidance." "Understood. Lieutenant, the fate of this system is in your hands. No pressure." Kade laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, is that all?" Here I thought this was going to be difficult. I pulled up his fighter on my screen. "Kade, listen to me very carefully. You don't have to do this. There are other options. We can evacuate the planet, fall back to a defensive position, and let those 3,000 people on the Retribution keep fighting alone? Let the Vraxin break through to the rest of Coalition space? Vorn, you know that's not an option. This is what I signed up for. This is what humans do. We fly into the impossible because someone has to." My 3 hearts were pounding. "Then at least let me guide you. I will monitor from here, talk you through it." "I'd like that." "Thanks, Tower." His fighter turned, accelerating toward the storm. The Retribution moved to provide cover, its weapons clearing a path through the Vraxin ships. "Approaching storm perimeter," Kade reported. "Turbulence increasing. This is going to get rough." "I'm reading the power signature," Finn said. "Transmitting coordinates to your ship now, Lieutenant." "Got it." Heading in. The storm swallowed his fighter. For a moment I lost all telemetry. Then, faintly, his voice came through the static. "Still alive. Still flying. Man, I really need to stop doing this." "Stay focused," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Follow the coordinates. How's your ship holding up? Let's just say I'm going to need another new fighter after this. If there is an after this, there will be. I will make sure of it." Lightning arced around his fighter. Energy discharges that would have destroyed most ships. But Kade flew through them with that impossible human skill, reading the storm, anticipating its patterns. "I see it," he said suddenly. "Vorn, I see the weapon. It's massive. Some kind of energy collector. It's drawing power from the storm itself. Can you destroy it?" "Maybe, if I can get close enough, and if my weapons haven't been completely fried by the interference." "Kade, your shields are at 30%. Your hull integrity is failing. Pull back, find another way." "There is no other way. This has to happen now." He was right. I knew he was right. But that didn't make it easier. Then make every shot count. His fighter dove toward the massive structure. Vraxin defense platforms tracked him, firing. He dodged, rolled, returned fire. Explosions bloomed across the weapon's surface. "It's working. The collector's destabilizing." "Get out of there, Lieutenant." "Now, almost done. Just need to hit one more critical point." "Kade, the energy readings are spiking. If that thing explodes while you are still in range—" I know. Just a little closer." I watched helplessly as his fighter closed in, watched as he fired his last missiles, watched as they impacted the collector's core, and watched as the entire structure began to collapse. "Kade, move." "I'm trying. Controls are sluggish." Come on." The collector imploded, creating a shockwave that rippled through the storm. It caught Kade's fighter, tossing it like a leaf in a hurricane. His ship tumbled, spinning out of control. "I have lost him again," Finn said, his voice breaking. "No signal." "No, not again. Not after everything." He keeps scanning. "Don't stop scanning." The seconds stretched into eternity. Then a voice. Weak. Barely audible. "But there." "Tower, this is Raptor 3. I'm still here. Ship's dead. Running on emergency power. But I'm alive." Relief flooded through me so intensely I had to grip my console to stay standing. "Kade. Where are you?" "Drifting. About 2 clicks from the storm's edge. I can't maneuver. Can't get clear on my own." Captain Cross's voice cut in. "We have got him on sensors. Dispatching a recovery team now." "Lieutenant, just hang on. We are coming for you." Through my viewports, I could see the Retribution moving, one of its smaller ships launching toward the storm, and beyond it, something else was happening. The Vraxen fleet was retreating. Not falling back tactically. Retreating. Fleeing. Their ships turned and raced back toward the storm, disappearing into it one by one. "They are running," Admiral Tusk said, her voice filled with satisfaction. The weapon was their last chance. Without it, they can't sustain the offensive. "Don't celebrate yet," Captain Cross warned. "They will be back. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year. But they will be back. This war isn't over." "Then we will be ready," the Admiral replied. "And this time we will be ready together." The recovery ship reached Kade's fighter, locking on with a tractor beam. Slowly, carefully, they pulled him clear of the storm. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until I saw his fighter safely in the recovery bay. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Damage reports. Casualty counts. Debriefings. The coalition fleet secured the area around the storm, establishing a permanent defensive perimeter. The Retribution and its fleet integrated with coalition forces, finally ending their 43-year isolation. I found Kade in the medical bay again. This time he was unconscious but stable. The doctors assured me he'd recover fully. Humans, they explained, were remarkably resilient. I believed them. Captain Cross found me there, standing beside his bed. "Your pilot's something special," she said, her voice tired but warm. "I know. Is 43 years we have been fighting. 43 years of barely surviving. And this kid flies into our war, gets out, and flies back in to end it. Not end it permanently, but give us the first real victory we have had in decades. That takes something extraordinary." "He's human," I said simply. "They are all extraordinary, in the most frustrating, terrifying, amazing ways possible." She smiled. "You have got that right. Thank you, Tower, for supporting him, and for believing in him when it mattered. Vorn. My name is Vorn." "Thank you, Vorn. And if you ever get tired of traffic control, there's a place for you on my ship. We could use someone who understands humans this well." I considered it. "Ask me again in a few years. After I have recovered from this week." She laughed and left. I stayed with Kade until my shift started, watching him sleep, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. Proof that humans, despite their insanity, could survive anything. When I returned to the tower, Brix was waiting. "Everything's settling down," they reported, their colors a calm blue. The fleets established patrols. The storms being monitored constantly. "We are safe. For now." For now, they agreed. Vorn, what he did today. Flying into that storm twice. That was insane. Yes. But it was also heroic. Yes. Yes. Do all humans do things like that? I thought about it. About the 3,000 crew members on the Retribution who'd fought for 43 years. About the coalition human pilots who faced impossible odds with jokes and determination. About Kade, who delivered a diplomatic package through a storm that should have killed him, found a hidden war, and then ended it. Not all of them, I said finally, but enough. More than enough. 3 days later, Kade was cleared for duty. He showed up at my station wearing a new flight suit, grinning that insufferable grin. Tower, Raptor 3 requesting permission for a test flight of my new fighter. Just a quick spin around the station. I looked at him. Looked at his medical reports that still recommended 2 more weeks of recovery. Looked at the storm in the distance, now surrounded by the combined might of the Coalition and human forces. Permission denied, Lieutenant. You are grounded for another week. Come on, Vorn. It's just a test flight. I said no. And that's final. He deflated a little, then brightened. Okay, fair enough. So, when I'm ungrounded, want to grab a drink? I owe you one for, keeping me alive. Despite myself, I felt something like warmth. Humans can't process Vorn beverages. They are toxic to your biology. Then we will get human drinks. I know a place on Deck 7 that just opened. They make something called coffee. It's terrible. You will hate it. Then why would I drink it? Because that's what friends do. They suffer through terrible beverages together and complain about work. Friends. He called me his friend. Fine, 1 drink. But you are paying. Geel. He left, whistling something that might have been a human song. Bricks floated over, pulsing an amused orange. You like him. I tolerate him. There's a difference. Keep telling yourself that. I returned to my work, monitoring the endless stream of traffic through Outpost 7. The Cathari were still doing barrel rolls. The Drenics were still avoiding ground spirits. And the humans were still flying like they were personally challenging the universe to try and stop them. Some things never changed. But some things did. The storm was still there, still churning with energy. But now, instead of being an unknown threat, it was a known one. Monitored, guarded. Understood, at least a little. And on the other side, the Vraxen were licking their wounds, planning, waiting. But so were we. The war wasn't over. Captain Cross was right about that. But for the first time in 43 years, the humans fighting it weren't alone. They had allies, resources, hope, all because one pilot had been crazy enough, brave enough, skilled enough to fly into a storm and come back out. Kade Merrick had vanished into the storm. Then the sky had exploded. And when the dust settled, everything was different. That was the thing about humans, I realized. They didn't just survive impossible situations. They flew straight into them, grinned in the face of death, and somehow managed to make things better on the other side. It was infuriating. It was inspiring. It was humanity. And I wouldn't have it any other way. My console beeped. Another flight requesting clearance. Another day of coordinating impossible people doing impossible things. I smiled, all 4 of my eye stalks focusing on my work. Tower here. Go ahead with your request. The voice that came back was young, eager, and unmistakably human. Tower, this is Falcon 2 requesting permission for atmospheric entry. And before you ask, yes, I checked the weather reports. No storms. I promise. I checked my screens. Sure enough, clear skies all the way down. Permission granted, Falcon 2. Proceed on Vector Alpha 3. And Falcon 2? Yes, Tower. My safe out there. Will do, Tower. Thanks. The fighter descended smoothly, without incident, following every regulation perfectly. I almost missed the chaos. Almost. You almost. But I knew it was only a matter of time before another human pilot did something completely insane and I'd be back to preventing disasters. That was my job. And honestly, after everything, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. The storm pulsed in the distance, a reminder that the universe was vast, dangerous, and full of unknowns. But we'd face them. Together, humans and aliens, coalition and former isolationists, Different species, different worlds, different ways of thinking, but united in one simple truth. When the impossible comes knocking, you don't run. You fly straight toward it. Preferably while violating at least a dozen safety regulations, because that's what heroes do. And the galaxy, whether it knew it or not, was full of them.